You mentioned Brazil here real quick. You have connections in Brazil, and I know you helped open a quarry. Can you give us that story of like
Oh,
the
yes.
connections and like that's
So,
like you just kind of nonchalantly jumped over. That's a big deal. I mean, that's impressive.
yes. So when I was in Puebla, this is another story. When I was
Okay.
in Puebla, one of this guy came up, like he's the same age as me. He went
Hmm.
into the warehouse and he's like, "Hey, do you know what this is?" I'm like, "It's granite." I thought it was
Hmm.
just like a regular customer, and I'm like, he asked for the owner, and I'm like, what do you need the owner for? I just, I mean, you can't always say you're the owner right away, right? So I'm like, um, do you need him for something specific? And he's like, well, I have this piece, and I'm not sure if you can help me. And I'm like, oh, it's granite. Why? And he's like, well, it's in my property. But I'm like, it's in your property. I'm like, granite here in Mexico, because I hadn't
Hmm.
heard about granite in Mexico. And then I'm like, okay. And then he invited me to his property with his dad and everything, which is in Guerrero. From Puebla to Guerrero is about 6 hours driving. So I went with him and one of the guys in the office, and I'm like, oh my god, there's a mountain here of granite.
Hmm.
And then we
What?
just started investigating and everything, and I helped Shannon, Shannon Carvalho from Diamond Exports and Trading in Brazil. She helped me with a group of Brazilians to come to Mexico and look at the whole process of the granite. And yeah, then we just started looking for investors. We went to the U.S. to look for investors. We Shannon actually looked into the U.S. embassy and see if it could be something that there was a project there that they could help us with, and we started looking into like investors to see where they could help us, because I mean having stone in your property,
Hmm.
it's amazing, but the other one, it's super expensive to actually start doing the whole
Right.
quarry process and everything. So I mean, it wasn't just like, hey, a couple bucks and yeah, no.
Yeah. Just start it yourself. Just start
Yeah,
digging.
no. And the owner actually of that property, he was into cattle, into cows, into horses, everything. Like it's just a big, huge ranch.
Hmm.
So he was gonna sell the property because it wasn't actually giving him anything. Like it's like, hey, there's no grass growing here. There's nothing growing here. So it's like a dead property. Why do I need it?
Right.
And then
So
um,
did he still own it, or did
oh
he
no,
still own it? You guys working it?
he
Okay.
still owns it. Yes,
Okay.
he's still the owner. But he wanted to sell it, and then when he was waiting for an investor to buy his property, this is before he knew he had granite.
Hmm.
Um, when he was going to sell it that day, it started pouring, like pouring, and the guy never got there. And
Mm.
he's like, okay, so he's not gonna hear. And he's like, okay, I guess I'll just go walk. He was walking with his son. They just started walking around and like, what is that shiny thing? And then it was granite. And that's when his son took like a little piece and then just
Hmm.
went to see me. So yeah,
Wow.
but yeah, and then we brought the Brazilian team. And then went to talk to our geologists and took out the whole
Hmm.
entire project, how much it was going to be, what was needed to invest, everything. So we did the whole entire project, and it was such a great project. Right now, they're still taking out granite. I mean, they have granite for I don't know how many years, but
Wow.
yes. I mean, he was going
Oh,
to sell it, and he didn't know he had like a fortune there.